entrepreneurial traits, and how do you fit that into a structure, especially if they don't want to be part of the main legacy business. Other things we've come across would be what happens if a certain generation leaves the branch, the family tree, the main family tree. There's a generation that you skip, but there's already children who are part of the family at large, still close to their grandparents, uncles and aunties, but would like to be part of the family business, but yet maybe their parents are out for whatever reason. How do you link the structure with them? And how do you give those people an opportunity, those family members, to still be part of the structure, even though technically above them, there is no linkage anymore? So these are typically things that come up. I'll try and answer other questions for you as we go along. So one of the big things that comes up, first of all, is this distinction between family versus business. And more importantly, family boards versus business boards. So these are a few things I want to cover with you, which I believe are really important for you to get this right. And initially, if you're a really small family business today, what typically would be happening is the business board. Okay, if you've got one company right now, let's say it's a $5 million business, $10 million business, it's a father and son business as an example, or a father and daughter business, and you're an SME, what I call a family SME, small to medium-sized enterprise. The business board is essentially made up, in loose terms, the owner of the business. Maybe only one person is the shareholder today. Maybe there's been no dilution. Maybe the son and daughter don't have shares today, in which case the father, in this example, is 100% shareholder, and that he's a director of that company, and he's acting as the board, okay, in loose terms. But really, there is no business board. You know, what's happening in that family business right now is conversations around the dinner table with father and son or father and daughter, talking about how the business is going, what's going on, what's happening with customers, what's our plan, how do we deal with this crisis? You know, that's typically what's going on. The key question is whether there's other things that have been done, and as we get through some of the things on the list here, whether they're in place or not. So typically in that example, you've got one company. If it's professional, it's a business board, and it's also acting as a family board. I hope that makes sense. It's like everything is wrapped up into one. There's no distinction between family board and business board at this stage. It's not large enough. It doesn't warrant doing that right now. So if some of you listening right now going, "Oh, thank God," okay, we don't have to have that sophisticated structure today. However, having said that, you still got to think about the future structure today, because if you've got children who are about to come into the business, or you've got people who are getting married, you know, you're talking, it's very quick. Next 15, 20 years is round the corner like this. And it's going to fly past. So it makes sense to start thinking about those structures today. And as children are growing up, you're influencing them, you're guiding them, you're mentoring them, sharing examples of what this structure is all about and how it will work in the future. You're sowing the seeds. So when the time is right for them, they know exactly how it's going to work. So the next stage of a family SME will be a situation, let's go to stage 2, could be a situation where a family business has two businesses. Okay, we've got company A and company B. And the family's slightly larger now. It's already a second generation family business. We're thinking about maybe third generation in the future. And we've got company A and company B. And let's say company A is a $50 million business and company B is fairly small, which started recently. It's a $5 million business. So collectively, we've got revenue terms, $55 million of revenue coming in from these two companies. And outside of that, we've also got some assets. Outside of the operating companies, the family have invested in maybe some properties, and they've got currently a property portfolio of, let's say, $2 million. So when you start getting to that stage, you definitely now need to start putting together some proper governance in place, proper structures in place. So now what we've got essentially is two businesses, and Both of them have got their own entities. They're legal entities as companies, limited companies, LLCs, whatever is the case in that country. And let's say both of them are owned by the same group of people, 100% owned by the family. And in this example, the father is the main shareholder still, okay, is the main shareholder. But because of legalities of maybe having a second director that needs to be on the paperwork, the legal side, the son or daughter is also showing up as a director on the documents. I hope that makes sense. I'm not going like too fast here, and let me know in the chat. Please engage with me in the chat as things come up. So in this situation, there's many family business we come across where it's very clear that the shareholding is with this group of people or this individual. And people who are on the legal documents for that company are only there to make sure that we could get that company registered and it's compliant. It doesn't mean that the individual on there who's also happens to, it looks like they're a 1% shareholder or a 5% shareholder or a 10% shareholder is really a shareholder. We get this a lot with many family businesses around the world. And also there's tax reasons. You need to speak to a good lawyer, a tax consultant, depending on which country you're in and where you're operating with your businesses. There's certain advantages of having certain other members in the company as directors. So these are a few things to consider. Again, you can ask me questions later as I'm speaking. There'll be other things popping into your mind. Now, assuming that that's the case now with A and B, we've got a situation where A is a fairly large company, B is a small company, and A is growing, and as it's growing, it's becoming more complex with what it needs to do. And this is where I recommend, especially for a $50 million business, it needs to have a proper business board, okay? A proper business board. And I'm going to be going through what some of the components are of creating that business board. While the second company, the Family SME, the $5 million company, doesn't really need a formal board at this stage. All it will have is maybe 2-3 things that it needs to do when it reports back to maybe the other family members. So when I say report back, what do I mean? Company A, Company B, above it would now be a family board. Okay, so we've got family board here, A and B. Now you may have the same people. Okay, someone from here is already here, someone from here is already here, but there could be also 1 or 2 different people also in A and B. But essentially what you're starting to create is a structure where there's some level of accountability and centralization to say, okay, are we on top of things? Are we on top of things? So is A performing at the level that it should be? Is B, if you look at on the deck right now, if you look at number 3 is a good example. Do we have, like we covered in our first module, I believe it was, is the vision, intention, purpose. Is that clear for both businesses? Do we know we want to take this business by 2025? What's the vision? Where are we going? What are the intentions? How are we going to get there? Purpose, why are we doing it? Same with B. So both of these things would apply. Next thing would be, what's the business plan? What's the strategic plan? If you look at number 3 business plan combined with number 6 maybe. Okay, we've got what's the plan, but how are we going to execute on those strategic objectives? What are the objectives? Do we have any for A and do we have any for B? So in a way, we're getting to a point where there's almost like a checklist, okay? And I'm going to be sharing with you what's in the checklist so you can have those as tools. Whether you're a small company or you've got multiple business, some of you I know on the program have got 20 plus companies in your portfolio, okay? And I know that, and some of them are very large businesses. So this becomes imperative that this is happening with every single business. And all of these companies are now reporting to the family board. The family board would be made up of who? Okay, I think I need to, at this stage, I want to start getting a bit interactive with you. Let's see what's happening in the chat. I didn't have it open there. So when it comes to family board versus business board, I'd like to ask you this question. Who sits on the business board and who sits on the family board? That's a question I've got for you in the chat. Please, start typing away. There's no right or wrong answer. Whatever pops up, let's see what's coming back from the group. Okay, who would be sitting on the family board? Who would be sitting on the business board? What is the difference between the two? Is it entirely the same group of people? Would there be different types of people on the family board, business board? And as I open this conversation up, also consider, what will be some of the duties maybe or responsibilities of people on a family board versus the responsibilities of someone who's on a business board. There is a clear distinction here. And this is why families end up building this two-tier structure for a reason. So hopefully there'll be some comments coming back. One of the biggest things that over the years I've been dealing with when it comes to family boards and business boards is the number one thing for me is around accountability. If you've got, let's say, 3 companies and a family board, and those 3 companies are running independently with whichever family members running it, but they're not reporting up anywhere, and there is no accountability going up to a central place on behalf of all of the shareholders, what do you think could happen with that particular business? And yet that person saying, no, look, I've got everything covered, leave me alone, let me just go and get on with it and run the business. Where could you end up with challenges or issues if there's no accountability? What could happen? So some of the comments coming back already would be around the family board. Maybe all members of the family could be in the family board, depending on how family is defined in the Constitution. Well done, okay? Someone's a quick learner and you obviously took on board lots of good things from the Family Constitution module. Excellent. So first thing I'd like to say, on the family board, depending on the size you are, okay, if you're like 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 7 people, maybe at a stretch 9 people in the family, and all 9 members are in the business, in your constitution, you may have made it clear that it's okay to have 9 seats on the family board. And this goes in the constitution, whether we're going to remain at 3, 5, 7, 9. And the reason why we choose those numbers is really linked to voting rights, okay? To when there's a key vote or a decision needs to be made, rather than getting to a situation where you can't make a decision. So the extra vote